Hello, I'm Viv,
And I'm Terry.
and we're sitting here in our garden, and we'd like to share with you exactly how it is we met and how we came to faith. And so, I was born, actually, before I was born, Jesus knew. He knew beginning to the end, and we haven't got to the end yet, but he knew that I was going to be born in Bournemouth and live with my mum and dad and my two brothers. And later on, my mum and dad joined the British Sub-Aqua Club, and I went along and joined them because I love the water. I love being in the water and swimming. And it so happened that somebody who I got to know also belonged to a branch of the British Sub-Aqua Club here in Weymouth.
And you might have guessed that was me. I was born in Weymouth in 1942. You can get your calculators out now. And on the day I was born, the Luftwaffe had 2 attacks on Weymouth, but they missed me. But later on, we moved to Texas, and so I lived for 3 years with my parents in Texas and returning later. Then I became interested in diving and joined the Weymouth and Portland branch of the British Sub-Aqua Club, and we competed against lots of other local diving clubs, including Bournemouth, and that's how I met Viv. Not quite underwater though.
Though I say that is where we met. It's part of my story that we met underwater. And so I was very young. We were both very young when we met, and 4 years after we'd met, we got married, and we were delighted to have Clive, our son, and then later Sharon, our daughter. And Terry was a spearfisherman, and he used to spend lots and lots and lots of time both spearfishing and competing. He was very good at his sport and swam competitively, both in Britain and for Britain. And so it was that our lives were, Terry used to do his diving practice on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night, and all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And the children, Clive and Sharon and I, used to go and play on the beach, really. We were very worldly people. We never went to church. We didn't know what church was. And that was our lives. We were happy. We were jogging along very nicely. About 10 years after we'd been married, we were going to visit some friends in Woking.
There was a Mike and Beverly Robinson who worked DBC for a period. And I did know what church was because I was a choir boy in one of the local churches. But when my voice broke, so did I. And so I hadn't really any interest at all. I don't think I got to the point where I was an atheist, but I was, I guess you could say I was an agnostic. But we were invited to go to Woking for the weekend to Mike and Beverly Robinson's house, who some years previously had an encounter with God, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen at this weekend, but nevertheless we went.
And during the weekend, Beverly and I had known each other since we were in our teens, so we were just keeping up our friendship, and we used to visit them once a year and they'd come to us once a year, so we were enjoying a really good weekend together. But I was curious because they didn't used to go to church, and now they were going to church regularly, and I was asking lots of questions, and actually I wanted to go to their church to see what it was that they were talking about. And so I'd said to Terry earlier, I'd really like to go. Would you like to go? And he said, we'll see.
I think I was worried about the number of commitments, additional commitments that I would have in my life if something happened. Actually, on the day, something did happen.
Yes, it did.
The night before, the Saturday night, Mike and I were talking about God, and I was asking him all sorts of questions, most of which he couldn't answer because there isn't an answer. And in the service the next day, it was Woking Baptist Church. Then, when the pastor came on, Harold Owen, his name was, he preached a sermon which was uncanny in the sense that he was displaying that he might well have been in the room with Mike and I as we discussed the things we discussed. So I had some of my answers, some of my questions answered, but not all. But I realised that something that these people had was different, and at that point in my life I wanted it. I didn't know any more than that, really.
And while Mike and Terry were talking in another room, Beverly and I were chatting about their church, and I was asking questions, and she was telling me about the church and saying it wasn't like a traditional Church of England, and it was a Baptist church. Well, I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of a Baptist church before. And so she said, well, we have to be there early if we want to sit together because there's so many people that go. And she then went on to say other things that would happen in the church. So we decided we would go. And so on the Sunday, we went along. We had decided if we didn't like it, we could leave when the children left for Sunday school. And it wouldn't we wouldn't feel uncomfortable because people would be moving about. So when the children came to go out to Sunday school, so Sharon and Clive were going out to Sunday school, well, that was new for them too. And I looked at Terry and I said, so shall we stay? And he said,
okay, I don't mind.
So I wanted to stay, so we stayed. And there was an open prayer time, and people praying from the congregation, and somebody did pray in tongue, and it was not frightening. It was the most peaceful thing I've ever heard. And then somebody translated it, and they said, I can't say this without crying, I'm knocking at the door of your heart, and I'm asking you to let me in. And I knew that was the moment when God was speaking to me. And I did let him in. And that's where he's been ever since.
It didn't happen to me like that. Actually, we went back to Mike and Beverly's for tea. We hadn't planned to do so, but I think I was in such an emotional state. I think I needed a cup of tea. But Mike gave me a little book at that time called The Four Spiritual Laws. So I took it home. We drove back to Weymouth that night. And before I went to bed that night, I read this book. And at the end, there was a prayer. And I thought, a prayer of commitment. Shall I read this or not? What if I read it and nothing happens? Fine. But what if something does happen? Okay, well that proves the point then, doesn't it? And so I did pray it, and something did happen. I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders at that time. And I think that was the moment. I know that was the moment when I became a Christian.
And so started a new part, a completely new part of our lives. So our son and our daughter wondered whatever was happening, because we started to pray. We didn't know how, we'd never done that before. And we wanted to go to church, but the church we'd been to in Woking was what was then called a charismatic church, and there wasn't one around here then. And that we were there in sometime around just before Easter time, and between then and September we used to join a Methodist home group in Dorchester, and it was through that somebody suggested that we might try going to Dorford. It was called Dorford then, and so we did. And so in the September of that year, when I was extremely pregnant with our third child, then we joined Dorford Baptist Church. And so our new lives began there. And the pastor there was Neville Barnett, and he suggested that when our new baby was born, David was born to us in the October, he asked if we might like to have a service of thanksgiving for our new son, and for to dedicate him to Jesus, and to ask the church for their help in bringing him up. And we said yes, we would love to do that, but we would like our son Clive and our daughter Sharon to join us on the stage, so that we were there together as a family and dedicating all of our lives to Jesus, which is what we did. And so this is where I've got a favourite verse. It's not my favourite. I haven't got a favourite verse from the Bible, but we were asked if we would like to sing a particular song for our family time of dedication, and we said yes. There was a song that was called a chorus that we'd sung at the Woking Baptist Church, and it was called "How Lovely on the Mountains Are the Feet of Them." That was the title of the song. And so we did sing that in Dorford. Well, that was new for them. So sorry for those who found that a bit difficult. But it was a chorus in Dorford, and we sang from Isaiah 52. It says, "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion, your God reigns."
I think we're asked to give a Bible verse each, a favourite one. Well, mine is Romans 1 verse 16. "I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. For in the gospel a righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last. Just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith." And that's my favourite verse, because I'm not ashamed of the gospel, basically. And I think that emboldens me to speak when perhaps sometimes I might find it difficult to speak, but I'm not ashamed, so I speak.
And so we found ourselves these last 10 weeks locked in, and here we are sitting in the garden, which Terry's worked really hard in and he's enjoyed. So during this time we have never been bored. For the first 4 weeks we didn't go out, we didn't go past the threshold of our drive, and we've got a dog, so he didn't get a walk, but we have got quite a long garden, so he had lots of runs after his ball. And our competition, Terry's and mine, was to try and throw the ball to the very end of the garden, missing all of the things that were in the way, so that it didn't hit the tree and rebound.
Especially the vegetables.
Especially the vegetables. So for the first 4 weeks we were shut in, but it was sunny, as nowhere I'd rather be than sitting in the sun. We didn't need to be away on holiday, which I think is one of the things that we've always enjoyed doing, is going away, haven't we?
We have, missing our adventures.
Yeah.
So we can't wait until we have a little trip back to Cornwall again when things improve. But as for getting on the plane this year, I think that's highly unlikely.
Yes, very unlikely. So times are different, and yes, we are missing some things, and our adventures is one of them. And we've been on Skype, or we've contacted our family, and our daughter Sharon lives in Texas, so we've been able to contact them. But when we'll actually see them again, we really don't know. We should be there now, but of course that couldn't happen. So God knows, before I was born, He knew where I was going to be born and where we were going to be and where we were going to go. He has it all planned out for us. So we wait and see what is His plan.
Absolutely. And we also miss the fellowship we have with our home group, life group. So that's something, but we still have our Zoom life group meetings, and that helps in some small way. But there's nothing like being with people, and that's what we're meant to be. Christianity is relational, and you can't really do that through Zoom. So we're looking forward to getting back together again, and of course coming to DBC as soon as it's safe to do so.